guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. It's been a few days since I've spoken to you guys. Obviously, the Christmas break was one thing. I'm getting over just a terrible virus. We've got some really cool videos coming up, including the newest episode of the Eckhart's Ladder Book Club. It's one of my favorites so far. If you're interested in seeing what that is, you can check the Patreon link down in the description. Today, however, I thought I'd tackle what's been a fairly controversial topic in the new canon, and that is demilitarization. Was the New Republic stupid for demilitarizing? And to be fair, this isn't really a fact made explicitly clear in the 3 Star Wars sequel trilogy movies. Like, we do see that the Resistance is operating with not a whole lot in terms of spaceships, but I mean, in Episode 9, we see a massive fleet show up, and in Episode 7, we see another fairly large fleet, presumably one of several destroyed. It's really only when you look in the secondary material, like Star Wars Aftermath, where we get a better look at what happened after the Battle of Endor. And in short, the New Republic, through the Military Disarmament Act, significantly scaled down its central military. I think since 2015, works have sort of been jostling with the degree to which the military's actually been scaled down. Like, it was supposed to be in 4 ABY, pretty much right after the Battle of Jakku, they were supposed to start trashing ships. Since then, we've seen in shows like Ahsoka that the New Republic is still pumping out new vessels, although, to be honest, more in line with a fairly demilitarized government. The new MC ship we see seems to be starfighter focused, as would be the case with later New Republic vessels. It's lighter on weaponry, not super large, with many of the improvements in the later New Republic coming in the form of upgraded starfighters, like we see with the various late T X-Wing models, as well as just general automation and systems advancement, like the Radis, a ship that was less conventionally powerful than you might expect, but was seriously advanced in many other ways. But does the general idea of demilitarization make sense? And if you're only coming at it from one perspective, i.e. that you're removing all the good guy forces in the Star Wars galaxy, well, of course not. And I think part of the reason why people really rag on the demilitarization of the New Republic is because it comes at a sort of weird time, especially when you go in those early Aftermath books. Right after the Battle of Endor, the peace talks have happened, get rid of the fleet. The reason that's not practical is because at that point, you still need a fleet. However, demilitarization, or at least the removal of the central military, can still make sense, and we see that based on the at least millennia of peace which occurred before the Clone Wars. If you think the New Republic was demilitarized, well, take a look at the pre-Clone Wars era Galactic Republic. The Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice. The Republic essentially had a small police force, and as we see in, for example, the High Republic, not much in the way of capital ships, traditional weapons, anything really. However, that does not mean the Republic is defenseless, and this is the key part. Rather, the responsibility for defense moves from the Central Republic government to the member systems. And this is the other side of the coin. If the power of the central military is going to be decreased, if you still have threats, which you always will, you make it up through what Star Wars typically calls planetary or system defense forces, and the idea is just what it sounds like. Corellia has a fleet. Coruscant has a fleet. Naboo has defensive ships. The specifics will really depend on the galactic politics of the time. For example, in the Legacy of the Force era, there was a big debate over how the ships of the GA, basically the New Republic successor state, should they come from taxed funds from systems within the New Republic, the GA? Should individual sectors have the right to make their own militaries? That was a serious debate, with Corellia, the hotheads that they are, obviously wanting freedom to make as many and as large a ships as you want. And that's another problem. Even though theoretically you do have a legal framework and the spirit of cooperation among neighboring systems, in reality, many planets, systems, regions within the Republic or the New Republic would have hated each other. Simply relying on that spirit of cooperation is not going to cut it. That's why during the Galactic Republic era, in Star Wars Legends at least, I'm sure this will be canonized at some point, there was what was known as the Ruusan Reformations. The Reformations limited many aspects of capital ship design, meaning that vessels had to be below a certain size, or if they were larger, could only be used in defensive purposes. There was a limit on the number of weapons, etc., etc. Now, planets and systems found ways around this, and to be honest, things also seem to be working pretty well for the New Republic and Star Wars canon, at least after what's going on with Thrawn. I think Bloodlines may be somewhat of a hard book to reconcile after the current era of The Mandalorian, because we've learned that, hey, hey, the 30 years after the Battle of Endor, they were more or less pretty peaceful. I think that might be thrown away, but for now, it looks like disarmament worked out pretty well, and that the supporting of individual member systems, encouraging and empowering them to defend themselves, worked pretty well. The weakness, however, as you'll probably see, is that of an outside force capable of overwhelming even the combined strength of multiple systems. And that's something that the First Order did. You don't see it in the movies, but if you've read any of the Star Wars comics, you'll see, and I'm not going to show the image, traced First Order ships destroying or intimidating systems across the galaxy with overwhelming force. It's sort of the same thing that happened with the Trade Federation. The Republic's system of protections should have worked, but several massive forces came out of nowhere and basically upset the balance. First of all, the Trade Federation found a loophole to basically quickly militarize their fleet of existing carriers, making ships which were significantly more powerful than any found in the galaxy. Plus, you have Sidious basically overseeing the conjuring of the rest of the Separatist war machine, basically under the nose of the Republic. Then, of course, he snaps and the Republic fleet is there as well. The issue with the Clone Wars was not the demilitarization, it was the fact that corruption had totally weaved its way into the cracks of the New Republic government, which Palpatine, as one very powerful man, was able to take advantage of. If you look at the New Republic era in Star Wars canon, it's not quite the same thing, but there are some similarities. The New Republic had a larger military than the Republic in the pre-Clone Wars era. The issue with the First Order was inaction. There was some corruption as well in Star Wars canon. In Bloodlines, we learn how First Order sympathizers have essentially infiltrated the government. We learn that the New Republic is unwilling to take any action against the growing First Order threat. That's the whole idea of the resistance popping up. And the First Order comes with just a ludicrous amount of ships as well. Hundreds of Resurgent class battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, mega star destroyers, super weapons. The piece that the New Republic had created should have worked. And as we see at the end of episode 9, when all the systems come together, there are enough ships. These are the militarized vessels of the galaxy. These are the system and planetary defense forces coming out of hiding. So is demilitarization always dumb? No, not at all. Not from a storytelling perspective and not from a logical perspective. What was dumb is how Aftermath wanted the New Republic to essentially remove 90% of their fleet pretty much in the year after the Battle of Endor. That made no sense. The Imperial threat was still there. The idea that the Empire would simply disappear and that the New Republic could snap their fingers and leave a state of total war just made no sense. Those are my thoughts though. Let me know yours down below.